let's do some NFL draft talk. This is a new weekly segment we're going to do with Brady, who also covers college football. Where were you going this weekend, by the way?
We're going to Columbus. Buckeyes are hosting the Badgers, so big one there in Columbus. Would have been bigger had Wisconsin not laid an egg last week in Champaign.
Okay, yeah. So you're just doing the pregame.
Correct.
Show. You know what? I don't know if we could do it because of rights violations, but it would be fun if we'd gotten video of Brady donning a cowboy hat before Oklahoma, Texas, and just you'd grabbed it off somebody's head. And you were like parading around the set. I was like, oh, Brady only had fun with us.
Someone had to pick Texas, so unfortunately I had to fall on the sword for that one.
Did you really think they were going to win?
No.
It was sort of close by Oklahoma standards.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it, Ryan.
All right, and Ryan, of course, is our NFL draft expert on CBSSports.com. Where do you stand, Brady, on the Joe Burrow versus Tua? Because I'm never going to call him by his last, just Tua. It's going to be
Tagovailoa, but yeah.
Tagovailoa. I'll get it down by the time it fell. Where do you stand on Burrow versus Tua at the first overall pick right now?
I think Burrow is just going to end up being the guy that, based on the film when you watch him, the way he operates within their system, a lot of similarities to an NFL system. You can make the case he's played better in bigger moments. I mean, this will be his third top 10 team he takes on this upcoming week versus Auburn, another decent defense. And there is talent at the wide receiver spot, but go back and watch the tape versus their game in Austin. I mean, he's making some really tight window throws and some big moments in that game to get wins. And so he, to me, with the way he's operated within that offense, the way he's played so far this year, he's a coach's son. Like, he checks all the boxes as far as the intangibles. And he's a good athlete. Like, he's a much better athlete than people give him credit. I think this is the guy that will end up maybe not getting quite as much buzz because he's not Tua and doesn't have all the track record. And I don't even know if LSU will win a national championship. They're definitely going to compete for one. But when it's all said and done, he's my number one quarterback prospect heading into the 2020 draft. And I don't know that there's much that could happen right now that's really going to change that opinion moving forward.
Brady, mind meld. This is my first mock. Let's see. I've done 7 or 8 mock drafts. This is my first mock draft coming out Wednesday morning, where I have Joe Burrow going first ahead of Tua. It's always been Tua. I think Justin Herbert maybe went once early on in September. You can see it there. So I have Joe Burrow going to Cincinnati. And you're right. He's a sneaky good athlete. He makes a lot of tight window throws. He actually takes some hits back there. Not often, but in the Vandy game, he took a beating, and he still made a lot of great throws. Doesn't make poor decisions. He already has a touchdown record single season at LSU through 7 games. He surpassed DeMarcus. What was his name? Who's the guy that won the Heisman your year, Brady? DeMarcus Russell. What's his name?
No, Jamarcus didn't win the Heisman.
Jamarcus
Smith did.
Oh, sorry, but Jamarcus Russell in 07 set the record originally, and we just saw Joe Burrow break that. Mike Malk also had that record. So I love him. And here's a question I want to ask you, Brady, because with Joe Burrow, he works with less. Like I said, he gets pressured occasionally. He still has a lot of weapons at the wide receiver position with Jefferson and Jamar Chase.
Well, and Terrace Marshall, too. I would actually make the case that they've got just as good as a complement of wide receiver as Tua does, but they've played better teams, so he's had to make better throws, better plays. And that offensive line is really good, too. So at least from that standpoint, the Vandy game, maybe one. There's been some other times he's received a little bit of pressure, but, and we'll see more this week. But he's outperformed everyone so far.
So my concern with Tua, and there are very few concerns, but he literally has all day to throw in the pocket.
Yeah.
He has 5 legit guys he can throw to who will always be wide open. And it's just sort of hard to do that evaluation when you're trying to translate that to going to some place like Miami, where it's going to be 180 degrees from what he's had to, what he enjoyed the last 3 years in Alabama.
Yeah, I think one of the things he's going to see is whenever he gets pressure, at least going back to the national championship game and some other moments too, he struggled. I mean, he struggled. Granted, he was banged up in the SEC championship game last year when he left with that ankle injury where he got operated. Same thing's happening this year, now different ankle. But he struggled versus teams that have bought pressure on him as far as diagnosing and understand quick answers and where to go with the football. So that's concerning. The one thing I'd say, though, Steve Sarkisian was previously a play caller at the NFL level, so he has, he's experiencing an NFL style offense, even though Sarkisian's coached the majority of his football at the college level. There's definitely concern about him just throwing to wide open guys all the time. You know, is it Jerry Jeudy? Is it Tua Tagovailoa? It's obviously a combination of both. And he's going to be tested, you know, once he comes back. I think he's going to try to make it back for the LSU game. I think there's got to be concern about just injuries in general. I mean, this is twice now. He's had the same procedure done. There's this, you know, iron rope around his high ankle in order for him to be able to get back and deal with all this. So I think moving forward, the fact that he's already had those 2 surgeries and he is a guy who's mobile, likes to kind of scramble around, kind of Russell Wilson-esque, you know, you just wonder, you know, Russell Wilson didn't face so many of those hits or deal with those sorts of injuries. Tua Tagovailoa has. I mean, if that's a precursor for the NFL, I think you'd be a little bit worried. There's also some times where I'm kind of concerned about him anticipating getting the ball out early. I don't know that he always, you know, does that. He's improved on that this year, but there's some times where he could get rid of the football quicker because you've got to do that in the NFL. It's all about throwing guys open, anticipating windows. I think Burrow already has a pretty good feel for that. So that's one of the differences, too, that I think in his play could be problematic in the future.
What about Ryan in your mock draft? Brady mentioned that he's going to wherever it is that Ohio State was. Columbus. Okay, it's in Ohio State. I couldn't remember. The Big Horseshoe, as they say. You got Chase Young at number 3.
Mm-hmm.
Best overall
awesome.
prospect. Best overall prospect.
Yeah, he's amazing. And it's not even close. Like, if the Bengals took Chase Young, I wouldn't hate them for that. Maybe they like Ryan Finley. I don't know. I think they're probably moving from Andy Dalton. But Chase Young feels like the cleanest guy in terms of drafting a guy and not having to worry about it. All he does is beat the person in front of him. He gets into the backfield incredibly quickly. He's strong. He's fast. He does everything you want. So you draft that guy, just like we said about Nick Bosa last year. You draft him when you feel fine about it. He's healthier than Nick Bosa, so that's the plus there. So, yeah, the Redskins need a ton of help. At number 3, I've had them taking Jerry Jeudy in the past just because that team is depleted of any playmakers outside of Scary Terry. But it certainly makes sense to draft a defensive end, certainly the best player in the draft, if you have him at number 3. If for some reason the Redskins do something crazy at number 3, I think the Falcons would love to have Chase Young fall to them, given all the needs they have. But, yeah, like I said, and I'm Brady, I'm curious what you think. You cannot go wrong with Chase Young.
No, you can't. I was just thinking, by the way, Joe Burrow, he's from Southern Ohio, so it'd make a lot of sense for the Bengals to kind of get that crowd and get the fan base there ignited. A lot of people still love him from his days at Ohio State. But to Chase Young, another Ohio State player, it would make a lot of sense considering this. Look at the rest of the NFC East. Wentz is going to be there for a while. I think Dak's going to be there for a while, at least if we're basing it off of his most recent performance. And obviously Daniel Jones. And so you've got to have a counter to that. You've got to have a guy who can get after opposing quarterbacks. And I think you've got that. You know, you've got Dwayne Haskins. If we're assuming he's their future at quarterback, you better have a guy who can get after opposing quarterbacks. So it would make a lot of sense. It's definitely a need for them. He's a very, very rare athlete. You know, reminds you of Jadeveon Clowney, almost a little bit more filled out. However, you're not concerned about the production and all of that. I mean, he's still making plays regardless of what they try to do to him. And I think everyone knows or assumes he's going to be leaving after this year. So you don't worry about like, hey, where did Jadeveon Clowney go after that big hit versus Michigan in the bowl game where he disappeared until he got drafted again? That's not the case with Chase Young. So very freaky, rare athlete for his size, the way he bends, the way he can get around the corner. The most impressive thing is his closing speed. Dude, when he gets around the edge of that tackle, it's like a straight line to the quarterback. And you just don't see many guys who have the ability at that size, and given the circumstances of probably another 300-plus pound guy pushing on you, be able to just put your foot in the ground and then get parallel and then all of a sudden close in on the quarterback. It is freaky, and it's a ton of fun to watch on film. Thank God I'm done playing quarterback in the NFL.
Brady, we're gonna throw up this top 10. You might have it in front of you anyway. Be prepared. You know what you're doing. Who else stands out to you from Ryan Wilson's top 10 that you would be keeping that our listeners should be keeping an eye on this weekend when they're watching college football?
Yeah, a couple guys. I mean, for starters, Jerry Jeudy, they need a playmaker there in Denver, especially with move on from Emmanuel Sanders. Sutton's a big body target, but Jerry Judy's got speed and he's got the ability to get open downfield. So they're missing that in their offense. Wirfs hasn't had as good of a year as I thought. I'll be curious to see at the end of the season if he does indeed go top 10. He's a mammoth of a man. He's really strong. And obviously the Chargers need that help, so it makes a lot of sense. I just don't know if it's Wirfs that ends up going in that spot. Jeffrey Okudah, I freaking love this kid at cornerback for Ohio State. He's every bit of 6'1 plus probably, really long, was just breaking down their tape of him and playing Northwestern. I think the best thing for him is Jeff Hafley, their co-defensive coordinator, came from the NFL level, and he's implementing a little bit more zone coverage. So where in the past he played predominantly press man-to-man, and he's phenomenal at that, now he's playing a little bit more off. And so he's getting a little bit more variety in case he goes to a team like the Giants who aren't going to sit there and just put him in press man-to-man coverage on the island all the time, even though he can do that. So appropriate spot for him. He's the best cover quarterback in this draft. Absolute stud, willing tackler, good ball skills. He's the complete package. Like, he's literally just a top 10 pick waiting to go in the draft, and it would make a lot of sense for the Giants.
Yeah, Okudah, Damon Arnett, Sean Wade's another guy to watch, keep an eye on this weekend. And
they're all going to go. You want to know what's funny is I was talking to the crew that called the game this past Friday night, and obviously it's a Friday night game, so a lot of NFL general managers were in town for it and everything else. They can make time for it. One of the general managers was talking to one of the coaches at Ohio State, and he said, "Hey, who do you guys have next week? The Packers, the Bears?" He's just looking around. He's like, the entire defense is a draft pick. Like, literally, they're all that talented. They rotate their front, and all those guys are that good. So they are a freaky, freaky team on that side of the football.
So, Brady, you might have noticed a name not on that list, and I credit Brinson for lighting a fire under me to put your flag in the ground and stake your claim early. I am off the Justin Herbert bandwagon. He is so frustrating to watch. I know they won last week in Washington. Jacob Eason outplayed him. He does so many things well. He does not do them consistently well, and I feel like he has one of the best offensive lines in college football. I know he doesn't have any receivers, but if he is going to be a top 3 pick, he has to play more consistently. He hasn't done it. I have him going 19th to the Jaguars in this latest mock draft, and I'm not even sure the Jaguars want him. I know they have Nick Foles and Gardner Minshew, but I am off the Justin Herbert bandwagon.
Yeah, so you're seeing basically what I saw last year, watching a ton of tape on him preparing for the bowl game, and then the early part of this year, I thought the Auburn game, he kind of showed me a bit more consistency and more playmaking ability, and played pretty well in that game. And he has made strides, but there are times where you just see him not be able to consistently make the throws that he should be able to make. There's a few things that bother me, though, in trying to evaluate him. I think the offense is terrible for his skill set. He's such a good athlete and such a good runner. They should incorporate him running the football way more within this offense, and they don't. The fact that he's in pistol a lot of times, too, and they're doing some of their play action where the running back's behind you in shotgun, you're not going to see that in the NFL. He's not going to have to do it. So you just kind of worry about maybe a little bit of his transition to the NFL style anyway. So that's a little bit of an issue. I think it makes it harder for him to play within rhythm of the pocket, meaning, his feet and his body moving through his progressions. So you see him work from 1 to 2 to 3 before he takes off or checks down or whatever he decides to do. So that concerns me. And then the other thing that I saw last year, and I really haven't seen him improve upon this year, he's got an absolute hose for an arm. The problem is he doesn't do a great job where he can like feather a throw and throw over a defender, but in front of the next line of defense and then into like a window for a dig route. You've got to do that sometimes in the NFL. That's kind of where you mentioned talking about throwing guys open. I don't see him doing that very often. And so that's something that he's got to continue to try to develop. So if you're looking at raw talent, skill, and ability, I can see why they take him top 5. But if you want someone who's played the position at a really high level and is going to be able to come in and do that doesn't need development, because we really can't develop quarterbacks anymore in the NFL, then I would be concerned for those reasons.
All right. I like it. Ryan, look, I'm going to encourage you. You should write a piece as like Wilson, Herbert sucks. And that's like the whole title. That's the whole title. And then that way when he stinks, you'll be on it. And then if he's good, no one will throw that back in your face ever again.